మా వేకప్ ఇండియా .tv లేటెస్ట్ అప్డేట్స్ ముందుగా మీకు రావాలనుకుంటే సబ్స్క్రైబ్ చేసుకోండి. అలాగే పక్కనున్న బెల్ ఐకాన్ ను క్లిక్ చేస్తే ఆల్, పర్సనలైజ్డ్, నన్ అనే ఆప్షన్స్ వస్తాయి. అందులో ఆల్ అనే ఆప్షన్ పై క్లిక్ చేయండి.
Sir, it's been a great honor that we have you here, and we know that you have been relentlessly giving your views, giving an alternate narrative to what was otherwise thought to be a normal narrative in India.
Yes.
Or even for that matter, even internationally. You've been a lone fighter for a long time, and to have you here for this program, it's an honor for us. And to hear your views, which are really so wise and packed with so much of your experience. But then we would also want to know your views in terms of maybe about this program itself and about this whole subject of the myths of Aryan invasion.
Yes.
I know it's a long session that we had. Probably if you want to sum it up, which we could kind of present it in a capsulated form.
Right. Well, let's start with the title. To call the Aryan invasion a myth, that's not really how it came about. You see, the people who thought that the homeland was somewhere in the far eastern corner of Europe, they thought that simply that was correct. And later then administrators or Indian politicians also started seeing the political uses of this, and then it became abused. But originally it didn't come about as a myth. It has started serving as a myth here in India, just as it has served as a myth in the British Empire, in Nazi Germany, but that is long ago. Whereas in India, it is still very active. It still has the function of a political myth. But in a scholarly conference, personally, I wouldn't have used the word myth in the sense that there you prejudge the whole issue. You make too clear where you stand. And so some scholars, especially in the West, will not like that. Also, the word invasion, in fact, is something they object to nowadays. You see, it originally very much was described as an invasion by Mortimer Wheeler and others. Was very explicit, very colorful in their language also about this. Indra stands accused, for destroying the Harappan fortifications and so on. Nowadays, quite a few scholars say, well, no, you see, this military scenario is too one-sided, is too stereotypical. We have something more sophisticated. So they have the Aryans move into India under the radar, unseen, without leaving any archaeological trace. And so if it would have been in military fashion, it would have left more archaeological traces. So that comes in handy for them. And so there they pretty violently now object to the term invasion. Nevertheless, I think that term is correct. As for the objections formulated here, I learned quite a bit. The genetic evidence, I've always said, is not so relevant to the ultimately linguistic question of what language came into India, how and why and when and if. But nevertheless, it is a migration that brought other languages You know, in those days, people didn't take some internet course to learn some distant language. So languages were physically brought, if they were brought. And so it is useful to look at the physical remains of migration. You know, both archaeology and especially genetics are useful in that regard. So they don't have the last word, but they are important. Apart of also from the language, it is interesting to know where people came from. Now, what was a real eye opener was a description of how even in the geneticist world, even in academia, even in the best academic periodicals, there's quite a bit of malpractice going on. You see um, how they accept or refuse papers on the basis of their contents, how papers are really substandard yet accepted because they toe the right line, the line desired. Um, so, and then how you see you can really criticize in ways that I didn't expect the work that is now so much cited by David Reich. I mean, that's not my field, so I learned everything new here. As for the archaeology, there, of course, we already knew that the there's absolutely nothing that defends the Aryan invasion scenario. Here we got some new evidence. Again, academic malpractice surrounding the Kizadi excavations, and a lot of interference by interested parties like the missionaries. So yeah, the whole issue is not so innocent. You know, I'd like to sort of agree with my Western friends that, you know, after all, this is only an academic debate. What are you talking about? All this intrigue and invasion and myth and so on. But in India, it is far more than just a scholarly debate.
Yeah.
It clearly is.
Yeah, it is. We have what Raju Malhotra had described as breaking India forces. The false narrative
Yes.
is perpetuated and percolated down. So once it goes deep down into the DNA and the psyche of the
Right.
people, it's so difficult for us to remove it.
Mhm.
You know, while at least at the scholarly level, serious scholarly level, unbiased scholarly level, they have a large degree of agreement in terms of the, you know, the whole narrative of Aryan invasion or even migration not being true. And out of India theory seems to be having some kind of support, or whatever. The point is the political angle to it and the breaking India forces, evangelical forces, or whatever, the communist forces. They have had a free run for now more than 60, 70 years.
Yes.
So one of the reasons why we conducted this conference, though people said this is a dead subject, our idea was to bring experts and researchers and scholars like you on one platform.
Yeah.
So we could present a narrative, at least to the intellectual class, so they would carry the message forward. So that was our idea. So what do you think? What do you think? What we attempted, you know, has some resonance?
Right. Well, it was certainly necessary because I noticed that the Aryan invasion theory stands. I mean, in India, it's still taught in every textbook. It is pretty omnipresent. I learned here that on the national portal, finally, these words Aryan invasion have been removed. So, and not that the opposite narrative is being pushed. Yeah, it's perhaps too early for that. But we do see it changing a little bit. And so, in places like here, of course, it's totally different. But you see, here, then you could get the feeling, oh, it's over. And in fact, many Hindus, especially non-resident Indians, you know, think that the Aryan debate has been won and that it's all over and that, you know, the Aryan invasion theory is dead and buried. No, not at all. Neither in India, where it has great political relevance, nor even in scholarly circles in the West. So it's very necessary. But you see, I do feel that the atmosphere is changing a bit. The political atmosphere is changing. For example, the book Urban Naxos. That's a real game changer. To just win the terminological war, to really have a term that very correctly and very strikingly characterizes the enemy. The Hindu side is coming into its own.
Fighting back.
And so the same thing is happening very slowly on the Aryan front, helped, of course, by the fact that the evidence is accumulating. You see, in spite of all the hullabaloo about the genetic evidence, well, it's not so difficult to counter that. And read then especially Shrikant Alagiri's book against Tony Joseph. He wins hands down. If it was not for the media power, this sudden enthusiasm for the Aryan invasion theory would not be there. It's not because of contents that it is there.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much
My
for
pleasure.
being with us. Thank you.
మా వేకప్ ఇండియా .tv లేటెస్ట్ అప్డేట్స్ ముందుగా మీకు రావాలనుకుంటే సబ్స్క్రైబ్ చేసుకోండి. అలాగే పక్కనున్న బెల్ ఐకాన్ను క్లిక్ చేస్తే ఆల్ పర్సనలైజ్డ్ నన్ అనే ఆప్షన్స్ వస్తాయి. అందులో ఆల్ అనే ఆప్షన్ పై క్లిక్ చేయండి.